From the legendary German Stahlhelm to rare Pacific variants, World War II saw nations protect their soldiers with dozens of distinct helmet designs. This video breaks down every major combat helmet worn on the battlefields from 1939 to 1945. The M35 Stahlhelm set the standard for combat helmet design. Introduced in 1935, this German masterpiece featured a distinctive flared rim, rolled steel edges, and protruding ventilation lugs on each side. Its instantly recognizable silhouette combined superior ballistic protection with excellent manufacturing quality, making it arguably the most iconic helmet shape in military history. Stamped from a single piece of molybdenum steel and treated with multiple annealing processes, the M35 represented pre-war German engineering at its peak. The M40 Stahlhelm sacrificed perfection for speed. As war production intensified in 1940, German factories eliminated the time-consuming rolled edge, instead leaving a raw stamped rim that was simply folded over. The ventilation lugs were simplified and the paint finish became less refined. Despite these cost-cutting measures, the M40 maintained the same ballistic protection as its predecessor, proving that wartime pragmatism could still deliver an effective fighting helmet. The M42 Stahlhelm reflected Germany's increasingly desperate situation. Introduced in 1942, this version eliminated nearly all unnecessary manufacturing steps. The ventilation holes were simply stamped through the steel rather than fitted with separate lugs, and many examples left the factory with bare metal finishes or crude paint jobs. It was the crudest Stahlhelm variant, yet it served German forces until the fall of Berlin, protecting heads even as the Reich collapsed. The M38 Fallschirmjäger broke from tradition for Germany's elite paratroopers. This specialized helmet featured dramatically cutaway sides to prevent interference with parachute harness straps and to improve hearing during jump operations. A thick leather rim cushioned the skull during hard landings, while the distinctive silhouette became synonymous with German airborne operations from Crete to the Ardennes. Its design prioritized jump safety over all-around protection, reflecting the unique demands of vertical warfare. The Luftschutz Gladiator served a very different war. This three-piece civil defense helmet was designed for fire wardens and air raid personnel, protecting German cities from Allied bombing. Lighter and cheaper than combat helmets, it featured a distinctive pressed steel construction that offered protection from falling debris rather than bullets. While combat Stahlhelms faced tanks in the east, the Gladiator faced firestorms at home. The Italian M33 borrowed heavily from French design philosophy. Featuring an Adrian-style profile with a prominent crest running front to back, this lightweight helmet reflected Italy's industrial limitations. Though it provided adequate protection against shrapnel, its thin steel construction left Italian soldiers vulnerable to rifle fire throughout campaigns in North Africa and the Soviet Union. The Italian M1916 represented desperation disguised as tradition. This outdated Austrian pattern helmet was pressed back into service as Italy's war effort strained under material shortages. Its obsolete design had been surpassed by newer helmets decades earlier. Yet Italian troops wore it from Ethiopia to the Albanian mountains, a symbol of Mussolini's industrial inadequacy. While the Axis powers refined their steel, the Allies approached helmet design with revolutionary new philosophies. The M1 helmet revolutionized head protection with its ingenious two-piece design. An outer shell of manganese steel sat over a separate inner liner made of compressed fiber, creating a suspension system that distributed impact force away from the skull. This innovation proved so effective that the M1 became the universal symbol of the American GI, serving not just through World War II, but continuing through Korea and Vietnam. Manufactured in the millions, it represented American industrial might and engineering pragmatism, offering superior protection compared to single-piece European designs while remaining comfortable enough for soldiers to wear during long campaigns from Normandy to the Philippines. The M1C paratrooper helmet adapted the revolutionary M1 design for airborne operations. Engineers added specialized chin cups that secured the helmet during jump operations, preventing it from being torn away by parachute opening shock or prop blast during aircraft exits. D-Day paratroopers over Normandy wore these distinctive helmets, identifiable by their reinforced chin strap system and attachment points for camouflage netting. The modifications were subtle but critical, transforming a standard infantry helmet into equipment that could survive the violence of combat jumps. The M2 paratrooper helmet refined lessons learned from bloody airborne operations. Introduced late in the war, this improved variant featured a better suspension system and enhanced chin cup design based on feedback from veterans of Sicily, Normandy, and Market Garden. Though it arrived too late to see widespread combat use in World War II, it represented the peak evolution of American airborne helmet engineering, incorporating hard-won knowledge from some of the most brutal battles of the conflict. The Mark II Brodie helmet carried British tradition into modern warfare. This improved version of the World War I design featured better steel than the original Mark I, with its distinctive wide-brim soup bowl shape becoming synonymous with the British Tommy. Cheap to manufacture and simple to produce in massive quantities, it protected Empire forces from the deserts of North Africa to the jungles of Burma. While less advanced than newer designs, its widespread availability made it the face of Commonwealth armies throughout the war. The Mark III Turtle helmet arrived as Britain's answer to improved protection. Introduced in 1944, this redesigned helmet offered significantly better ballistic coverage, with extended protection for the sides of the head and neck that the Brodie's wide brim couldn't provide. Its turtle-like profile reflected combat lessons learned through 5 years of brutal warfare. However, limited production meant many British soldiers never received one before Germany's surrender, making it a tantalizing glimpse of what might have been. The airborne helmet gave British paratroopers their own specialized headgear. Distinctive cutouts in the helmet's rim improved peripheral vision and hearing during jump operations, while maintaining the Brodie's basic design philosophy. Worn during the catastrophic drops at Arnhem and the triumphant Rhine crossings, it marked British airborne troops as a breed apart, even as they fought alongside their American counterparts in the race across Europe. On the Eastern Front, the Soviets took helmet design in a radically different direction. Eastern Front conditions demanded different priorities from Soviet helmet designers. Mass production trumped perfection, simple manufacturing replaced refinement, and brutal climate tolerance mattered more than comfort. The Red Army needed helmets for millions of soldiers and needed them immediately. The SSH-36 emerged from the crucible of the Spanish Civil War. This early experimental design featured a distinctive raised ridge running front to back across the crown, giving it an almost medieval appearance. Soviet advisors tested it in Spain's brutal conditions before bringing lessons home to refine the design. When Germany invaded in 1941, many Red Army soldiers wore SSH-36s during the desperate early battles. From the Winter War against Finland to the catastrophic opening weeks of Operation Barbarossa. Its transitional nature became apparent quickly as combat revealed areas for improvement, leading Soviet factories to pursue a better solution even as the Wehrmacht drove toward Moscow. The SSH-39 represented Soviet design philosophy evolving under pressure. Engineers reduced weight to improve infantry mobility during the endless marches across the Eastern Front's vast distances. The suspension system received meaningful upgrades, making the helmet more comfortable during extended wear in temperatures ranging from summer's scorching heat to winter's killing cold. Manufacturing simplification began in earnest as Soviet industry prepared for the coming storm, streamlining production processes without sacrificing protection. Though still a quality helmet retaining good ballistic properties, it served primarily as a bridge between peacetime experimentation and the desperate wartime production that would follow. The SSH-39 equipped many soldiers during 1941 and 1942 before the ultimate evolution replaced it. The SSH-40 became the definitive face of the Red Army. Manufactured in absolutely staggering numbers that dwarfed any other helmet in history, millions upon millions rolled from Soviet factories as the nation mobilized its industrial base. This was the ultimate mass production helmet, a triumph of quantity over refinement. Simple stamped steel construction eliminated every unnecessary manufacturing step, creating a crude but brutally effective design. The no-frills approach meant rough edges, basic paint finishes, and utilitarian suspension systems, yet it protected Soviet heads from Stalingrad's ruins to Berlin's Reichstag. Primitive compared to German or American designs, the SSH-40 prioritized what mattered most: getting steel helmets onto soldiers' heads faster than those soldiers were being killed. Its robust suspension could withstand Soviet winter temperatures that would crack more delicate systems. The helmet became inseparable from images of Red Army soldiers raising the Soviet flag over conquered cities, symbolic of the nation's industrial might and willingness to sacrifice elegance for effectiveness. Unlike most World War II equipment, the SSH-40 continued serving for decades after Germany's defeat, equipping Soviet forces well into the Cold War era and proving that simple, mass-producible designs sometimes outlast their more sophisticated competitors. While European powers refined steel designs for millions of soldiers, Japan took a completely different approach in the Pacific Theater. The Pacific Theater presented unique challenges that demanded different solutions from helmet designers. Jungle warfare required equipment that could breathe in stifling humidity. Tropical, heat-tested materials that performed well in European climates, and Japan's distinct combat philosophy influenced every piece of military equipment. Resource limitations as the war turned against Japan would dramatically affect design choices, while cultural elements rooted in samurai tradition subtly shaped even utilitarian gear like steel helmets. The Type 90 defined the Japanese soldier's appearance throughout the war. Introduced in the 1930s, this helmet featured distinctive five-pointed star ventilation holes stamped into the steel, creating a pattern instantly recognizable from distance. Traditional Japanese aesthetic influence its somewhat curved profile, blending modern industrial warfare with echoes of ancient armor. Leather and cloth suspension systems reflected Japanese manufacturing capabilities of the era, providing adequate comfort in the brutal Pacific heat. The Type 90 saw extensive service during the China campaigns and equipped Japanese forces striking Pearl Harbor, becoming synonymous with Imperial Japanese Army soldiers from the Philippines to Guadalcanal. Manufacturing quality varied wildly as the war progressed and Japanese industry struggled under Allied bombing and resource blockades. Early examples featured excellent steel and careful finishing, while later production helmets showed increasingly crude workmanship and inferior materials. Featured anchor attachment points allowed soldiers to secure camouflage netting and vegetation, essential for jungle concealment. Relatively good ballistic protection came at the cost of weight, making it heavier than many contemporary designs. The helmet reflected pre-war Japanese industrial capability at its peak, showcasing what the nation could achieve before total war consumed its factories and raw materials. Japanese infantry wore Type 90s across the entire Pacific Theater, from the conquest of Singapore to desperate last stands on Iwo Jima and Okinawa. The Type 92 represented Japanese helmet engineering at its finest, despite the confusing designation suggesting it came later. Actually introduced in 1932, well before the Type 90, it featured an improved ventilation system that enhanced airflow in tropical conditions. The refined suspension system provided better weight distribution and comfort during extended wear. Engineers managed to reduce weight slightly while maintaining protection levels, creating a more balanced design. Both the Type 90 and Type 92 remained in production throughout the war, serving side by side as Japanese industry struggled to meet demand. The Type 92's improved liner specifically addressed tropical warfare conditions with materials that resisted rot and handled moisture better than earlier designs. Distinctive ventilation pattern changes made it identifiable from the Type 90 at distance, though both served similar roles. It became standard issue for many elite Japanese units who received priority equipment allocation. Production continued until 1945, even as American bombing devastated Japanese industrial centers. Resource shortages meant later examples used increasingly inferior steel, sometimes barely adequate for their protective purpose. Some variants featured drastically simplified construction as Japan's situation became hopeless. The Type 92 represented the peak of Japanese helmet engineering before wartime constraints forced compromise after compromise, a symbol of what might have been had Japan possessed the industrial depth to match its ambitions.